Brought to you by Time to Change Worcestershire, the Herefordshire Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce and the Herefordshire Worcestershire CIPD branch. We've got some great speakers this morning. We have Amanda, Kerry, Andy, Adriana and Jill, and they will all introduce themselves to you as they give their presentation, so I won't take time up to do that now. We are hoping that after today you're going to go away with lots more information about Time to Change Worcestershire and how the programme can really help your organisations and your employees. One thing that I would like to add is that Olivia has already mentioned about the chat. Obviously use that for your questions, but we thought that it might be a nice idea if along the way throughout the webinar, if you could put in the chat, say up to 3 things that you've implemented in your own organisations that have really, really worked for you and your employees. And we'd like to share the chat afterwards and share best practice with you all, because that's what these webinars are all about, sharing best practice amongst our businesses and colleagues. So any really, really good ideas that you have or if you've implemented, please put them in the chat and we'll collect them up and share them after the webinar. Finally, before I actually introduce our first speaker, I'd just like to mention a couple of chamber webinars which are coming up. We have our HR forums. We have one on the 14th of July and one on the 11th of August. Always have a really, really good range of speakers on HR issues, so it'd be great to see some of you there. And we also have our workplace mental health awareness course, which is taking place on the 15th of July. So all this information is actually on the Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce website. Anyway, without further ado, I am going to hand over now to Amanda Wright, who is from Time to Change Worcestershire. And Amanda's actually going to take you through her presentation to introduce the programme to you and obviously give you more of an overview of what the programme is all about. So Amanda, are you happy to take over? And you're on mute.
Well, one of us had to do it, didn't they? So might as well be me. Good afternoon, everyone. On the slide that you can see, there is a picture there, and that little image is of one synapse firing. And a synapse firing is neurotransmission, which is where within our brain, those teeny tiny little synapses fire, and it's where one idea is born, and that is where our thoughts, our feelings and our actions, everything we do originates. There are billions of synapses firing in our brain, and they're microscopic, and it's an illustration of the power of small and how the way that we think, feel and behave is actually created. So the power of small was one of the Time to Talk Day themes in 2021. It takes place every year in February, and that's where the small act of someone with lived experience talking about it to someone who may not have had that lived experience of poor mental health, and that contributes to making big changes in understanding and connection. So my name is Amanda Wright. I am a Time to Change champion. I work for a voluntary organisation called Community First, and I'm a health and wellbeing development manager there and help to coordinate the Time to Change Worcestershire hub. Time to Change itself is a social movement working to change the way people think and act about mental health problems. The campaign started in 2007 and the national campaign closed at the end of March 2021, so quite recently, but actually not locally. So there's lots of work still going on locally to end stigma and discrimination. So Time to Change Worcestershire is a dynamic partnership made up of local organisations and people who are committed to taking positive action to end negative attitudes towards mental health. Our activities are developed and delivered by our Time to Change champions who are at the heart of everything that we do, whether it's in the workplace or in the community or in our schools and educational settings. So we have a team of a core of 15 champions who take part in a Champions Action Group, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later on from Andy. And we also have a very active steering group, and both Dawn, that you've heard from earlier, and Jill, you'll hear from at the end, are part of that steering group, as well as a number of other very active partners locally as well. Originally, we were established using national funding in 2018, and we're hosted by the Worcestershire Health and Wellbeing Board. Our partners also include, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, the University of Worcester, Worcestershire County Council, and other voluntary sector and public sector and private sector organisations as well. So we now have funding thanks to Worcestershire County Council up until November of 2022. And that includes some grants of up to £500 for people in Worcestershire. So sorry if you're in Herefordshire, but this applies to Worcestershire only, to help set up activities where those sorts of conversations that change attitudes can take place, and to help further our campaign and our key activities. So some of our key activities, as well as improving attitudes and behaviours towards people with mental health problems, include making sure that people can take action to challenge stigma and discrimination as well, whether that is in their communities or their workplaces or even online. And we're working towards ending discrimination around mental health. If you are joining us from Herefordshire today, there are still things happening that you can become involved in. I'll take you through in a moment a legacy website from the Time to Change national team, but also we have within Herefordshire and Worcestershire now a suicide prevention team, which is also helping to tackle stigma and discrimination around mental health across the 2 counties. So there will be lots of training and opportunities available to get involved in that. And also we've just set up this year as well a wellbeing and recovery college, which covers both Herefordshire and Worcestershire too. So these slides that I'm going to take you through now are actually screenshots from the Time to Change website, which is still available to anyone, anywhere. And on the website, there are lots and lots of resources for individuals, as well as employee champions and employers, and schools and educational institutions as well. So these are focusing on the activities for the workplace. And if you wanted to get involved with this, then please do have a look on the Time to Change website. Or if you want to get involved as an individual, you can join Mind's Lived Experience Unit, which is another legacy activity following on from the national campaign, or Rethink Mental Illness have a lived experience network as well. So on the website, for the employer section, you'll find all sorts of resources, including things to help further understanding around mental health in the workplace. So for example, some lunch and learns, I suppose we would call them menus if they're for lunchtime, but lesson plans. There are myth busters and quizzes and all sorts of things there too. This slide is an illustration of the Quizmaster cards. And one of the things on there I will just read out to you because I think it's so important. The stigma and discrimination around a mental illness can be more difficult than the illness itself. And I think it's really important that we understand this fact, because 58% of people in a recent survey said that the stigma and discrimination that they'd suffered because of having a mental health problem is harder to deal with than the illness itself. And that 67% of people with a mental health problem have experienced discrimination. The other thing on there is that there's not much you can do to help a friend, which is actually a myth. And if someone you know is experiencing a mental health problem, it's really easy to support them. And it's as easy as staying in touch and also asking people, how are you? And those of you that know the campaigns will know to ask twice. So it's really important that even though the national campaign has ended, we must continue this work. If you're working in the workplace, it's really important that we take a whole system approach wherever possible, and supporting managers as well as supporting employee champions is something that is covered on the website as well and within our work. And this will be around giving ideas and managing conversations. Some of the most difficult things to do as a manager is to have difficult conversations with people. So there are some resources to help with that there too. Another thing, we talk about having conversations. How do you open up those conversations? So the website contains information on that too. So the speaking up, speaking out is about helping individuals to share their personal stories. And 6 degrees of being in a colleague's corner is actually about creating a culture where people will be listened to and not judged, and how individuals can support their colleagues. Lots of other resources on there that you can use as an employer. You can just go onto the website and download them. If you're interested in training for people within your organisation, through the Herefordshire and Worcestershire Wellbeing and Recovery College, the Time to Change champions from Worcestershire are actually delivering training for people. So you could access training on challenging stigma and discrimination, and we will be running social contact training there as well. So this is all about fighting stigma and discrimination. So a couple of examples there on some of the resources that are available to help do that. So a force field analysis, the pros and cons of talking about mental health as a person within your workplace, and also taboo or not taboo, that is the question. So it actually is often very much a lot of fun doing this, even though it's quite a serious and can be at times a distressing topic. Some of you in the audience may have been part of the Time to Change pledge in the past and completed a Time to Change employer action plan. The pledge was actually retired in last year, in 2020, but actually the action plan is still available on the website. So if you wanted to put in place a whole system approach, this will help you to do that. It is aligned to the Thrive standards, the Thriving at Work standards. So if you are involved in those, you'll find it fits very nicely alongside that. And it also links in very nicely for those of you that are involved in Worcestershire Works Well and the accreditation scheme around mental health and health and wellbeing in the workplace in Worcestershire. Also on the website, you'll be able to read an impact report around the things that have actually been achieved by Time to Change from the national team over the years that they've been running. And what's quite significant is that since the start of the campaign, 5.4 million people's attitudes to mental health have improved. And what you can see on the slide there are some tips from the impact report. And basically the tips are: do what works for you within your organisation. Make sure you involve both managers and people. It's important to set goals and to recognise and embed changes and to recognise achievements that have been made. And also, as this is a social movement, create a culture by empowering champions and making sure that people understand that it is okay to talk about mental health in the workplace and that people will be there to support them. So what I'm going to do now is just stop the screen share for a moment, make sure we've got this all lined up. This is the embarrassing point where you all look at me as I'm fiddling around with my technical bits. And I'm going to reshare my screen. I'm just going to show you a little film. It's 1 minute long, but I think it's one of those small things that can make a big difference, and hopefully you will enjoy it. So thank you. I will just maximize this. Can you all hear that okay? Shout someone if you can't.
Whoa. Can I help you?
We're John's mates. Is he around?
Yeah, he's over there.
Cheers, mate. Right, John. All right, boys. Go sit down. Sit down.
1 in 4 of us will fight mental health problems this year.
You can do this, John. We're with you. We're with you, mate.
Having a mate in your corner can make all the difference. So if your mate's acting differently, step in.
Here we go now, the bell's out.
Search Time to Change.
Thank you, Amanda. No, thank you, Amanda. I'm just checking that I was on mute then. That was a short video, but it actually said quite a lot, I thought. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. And hopefully that's given you a little bit more of an insight into what Time to Change is all about. We're very, very pleased that activities are still continuing locally. We just felt that since the demise of the national programme, many of you might not have realised that Time to Change was still out there, but we're very pleased to be able to say that it's very much still with us, and it's a programme that we're all able to participate in. So thank you, Amanda. We're actually going to be moving on now to the first of our 2 business speakers. The webinar title was Is It Time to Change Your Perspective? And we thought it would be good to have a Time to Change presentation from 2 very, very different businesses, both with different perspectives and what's worked in their organisations, which are very bespoke to them, because as Amanda said, do what works for your organisation. So I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Kerry from Worcester Bosch, and now it's my turn to sort out my technical bits. So I'm just going to share my screen so I can pull Kerry's presentation up on the screen, and hopefully this will work, and I will be able to hand you over to Kerry in a couple of moments. So let's just have a look. Oh, no. Sorry, I've just got to get the right slide. I knew something would go terribly wrong, but here we go, back again. Right, so Kerry, are you there? Because I can't actually see you.
Can you hear me okay?
Are you happy to make a start?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dawn. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Great.
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm really pleased to be here today, so thank you very much for inviting me. Looking forward to sharing with you our health and wellbeing journey at Worcester Bosch, and in particular how Time to Change has helped shape our mental health strategy and helped us support our employees through the pandemic. So just a little bit of background about me. I'm the Employee Engagement Project Manager for Worcester Bosch. I'm responsible for creating and executing our employee engagement strategy and enhancing the employee experience. I've been with the business for about 10 years now, and back in 2017, I established a small employee-led working group with a few of my peers to create and implement a health and wellbeing programme for employees. And it was really successful, and as a result, the need for a dedicated resource on this topic was identified and my role was established. So if you could click on to the next slide for me, please, Dawn. Oh, sorry, just back one. So Worcester Bosch is part of the worldwide Bosch Group, and we're the UK market leaders in domestic boilers. Our UK headquarters are based in Worcester, and we have a further site in Claycross, Derbyshire, employing 1,800 people in total. If you could click forward for me, please. Thank you. Our purpose statement, the reason why we all come to work here at Worcester Bosch, is warming lives, protecting our future. And the values we embody as a business and the culture of our organisation, which is crucial for performance of our business, simply doesn't exist without our employees, our most valuable investment. And now more than ever, it's been really important to focus on supporting employees' health and wellbeing as we navigate these challenging times. And employees being at the heart of what we do, bringing our brand to life, delivering on customer experience, means having a robust health and wellbeing programme and a mental health strategy is no longer just a nice to have, but a business need. So if you could click on to the next slide for me. So where did it all start for us? Our Time to Change journey began in 2019 when we signed the employer pledge. And by doing so, we committed to change how we think and act about mental health in the workplace. And as Amanda mentioned, a requirement of the application process is to produce an action plan. And we found that this really helped define our strategy and gain buy-in from our senior leadership team. So although the employer pledge doesn't exist, I'd really still recommend taking a look at the action plan if you don't have a mental health strategy, because it really does help sort of to provide some structure and measurable outcomes to your plan. Next slide, please. So I thought it'd be really useful to share some of the key activities and initiatives we've implemented as part of our Time to Change activities. And some of the highlights for me include therapy dogs visiting our busy contact centre to relieve stress during our busy winter period. And we saw increase in morale, boost in performance and happier colleagues after each of the visits from the dogs. And I think that smile on my colleague's face there, cuddling the dog, just says it all really. We've also run various activities such as Elephant in the Room from Time to Change, so from the website that Amanda mentioned in her presentation. And this was a really powerful activity. It shows people who are experiencing mental health problems that they're not alone with their experiences. And we produced this huge 2 metre by 2 metre elephant that we moved around the business and asked employees to add post-it notes to it, either to add messages of support or to share how they were feeling. And I honestly thought that we'd get just a few notes from our health and wellbeing team. I was banging on to them, can you put some post-it notes on so it doesn't look completely bare? But as you can see, our elephant was full of messages of support and people opening up and sharing about their experiences. And it was actually quite overwhelming reading the comments, and it really does demonstrate how much our employees really care and support one another. To support various awareness days and events, we've invited guest speakers to share experiences with our colleagues. And we've seen leaders show vulnerability by sharing their personal experiences of mental health issues, as well as keynote speakers such as the footballer Clark Carlisle, the founders of the charity Strong Men. And the value of these sessions really comes from creating an open and safe environment for people to share and support one another. So I mustn't forget about the link between mental and physical health as well. So we really try to ensure that our programme covers physical aspects as well, such as fitness classes for yoga, Pilates. We've run a Couch to 5K training programme as well. And individuals have signed up for this for various reasons, such as mental health problems, body image, fitness challenges, combating loneliness during lockdown. And we've now got a really successful running community, both locally in Worcester and on Strava as well. Next slide, please. So with 1 in 4 people experiencing a mental health problem this year and a 75% job burnout rate due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the health and wellbeing of our employees has been a huge focus for us. We've implemented many activities to support our colleagues through this difficult time and built on the foundations that we've established with our initial Time to Change action plan and strategy. Next slide, please. We now have a network of 200 trained mental health first aid champions who offer practical support and one-to-one advice, and they run regular drop-in sessions for employees as well. One of Amanda's colleagues actually recently provided a training session for our champions on challenging stigma and discrimination. And it was really successful. Our champions felt really empowered to go back to their departments and run their own activities, which was absolutely fantastic. We've also organised virtual training sessions for employees on navigating the new norm, getting quality sleep, staying energised in challenging times, all of which have really helped our employees to cope with the many emotions they've been experiencing over the sort of last 18 months or so. So just to summarise really, we truly believe that happy and healthy, engaged employees will deliver the best experience to our customers and continue to drive business performance. And final slide, please, Dawn. So if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer those at the end, as mentioned at the beginning, if you pop them in the chat. And there's also my contact details if you wanted any more information on anything I've discussed today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kerry. And yes, I was around when the Elephant in the Room was launched, and I remember, you know, how overwhelmed you all were at some of the comments that had been written, and that, I think, from what I remember, really drove you then to actually really tackle the topic of mental health and anti-discrimination. So yes, I remember that really well. So I'm glad you included that in your presentation. So we're going to look at a different perspective now. We're going to a much smaller organisation, and I'm very pleased to welcome our very own Adriana Geary, who is going to be talking on behalf of our Time to Change team at the Chamber. So Adri, are you ready to kick off? I'll just load your presentation for you, which, if it all works, it should be there, and there it is.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Lovely
Adri.
to see. I think I got muted there, Dawn. I think hopefully everyone can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really good to see so many of you joining us today. As Dawn mentioned there, my name is Adriana Geary, and I'm representing our Time to Change group at Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce. We're currently about a team of 8, so not too bad given the size of our organisation. It represents sort of 10% of all of our staff at the Chamber. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. So today I'm going to sort of talk to you about our Time to Change journey at the Chamber of Commerce. And what we have done over the last year to create a sense of normality and continuity for our colleagues. It's been an extremely challenging time for a lot of people. So I'll be giving you an insight into our virtual and socially distanced gatherings and what we've been doing to encourage more of our colleagues within the Chamber to get talking. And finally, I'll finish with a few tips of our own as well, just should you wish to implement some virtual gatherings within your business. Next slide, please, Dawn. Okay, so how have our ideas evolved? Well, we first signed our pledge back in 2018. So that was just before I joined the Chamber, actually, in 2019. At that point, the Chamber became very involved, and they sat on and still are a member of the Time to Change steering group, as Amanda mentioned a bit earlier on. And that's all about promoting the pledge and encouraging other businesses to do so as well. But we also launched Time to Change internally within the Chamber of Commerce. So we asked for volunteers, and they became our champions. From the very beginning, it was vital that our Time to Change group was employee-led as opposed to manager and HR-led, although our very own Dawn is also a Time to Change champion at the Chamber. But it's really important for us within our organisation that it was an employee-led programme. But we really began to up our game in terms of our activities and engagement over the last year. We felt it was really important to help build our colleagues' resilience, provide them with coping strategies and useful coping techniques. But at the same time, we felt it was really important to create some sense of normality, sort of general sort of get-togethers. I find that we all work a bit harder when we're working remotely. You might be isolated on your own. So we thought we wanted to break up the day a little bit by integrating some catch-ups with our colleagues. Next slide, please. Thank you, Dawn. So as you can see there, there's a few of the sort of activities and days that we've been organising over the last year. We had a really good resilience workshop that we organised as part of our virtual away day in December of last year. And that was with one of our chamber members, a company called Meta UK. And they do some really fantastic work with the NHS and other local charities. We also put together a quiz for World Mental Health Day over Zoom, as we've been doing with all of our virtual gatherings over the year. The aim was really to make the quiz fun and interactive though. So we implemented some really good fun in there to get lots of people just enjoying themselves as much as possible, whilst making them think about their mental health and well-being a little bit more. But more recently, we organised our Cup of Catch-Ups, which is something sort of touched on a bit earlier on. And that was really inspired by one of my colleagues who recently joined us as a chamber champion, my colleague John. And he is, as a new starter, he joined us completely on his own and remotely. So he was keen to actually get to know other people as much as he possibly could. And he felt that it would provide those sort of water cooler moments that we don't currently have because we're at home or working remotely. So we implemented these Cup of Catch-Ups, which we currently still run twice a week, one with a theme. So as you can see there on the slide at the very bottom there, that's from one of our Cup of Catch-Ups, and it was a pet theme there. You can probably see our sales and customer service manager, Marie, and her pug just right in the middle there. So she brought Ozzy along to join us. And she also brought her African snail, Gary, along for the ride as well. So just really fun get-togethers that, you know, people just wouldn't necessarily be having because we were all working remotely. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'll just pick up a little bit more on one of our virtual sessions, our virtual Jacks room, because it was really well attended within our organisation, but it got people thinking as well, and that was really important. Virtual Jacks room was essentially a virtual version of our staff room at the chamber, which is called Jack's Room, funnily enough, named after one of our colleagues who sadly passed away. So quite an important space for all of us, but also it's our staff room. So it's a virtual version of that. So we held those, but we also invited key speakers to come along and offer our staff help and advice and guidance. So therapists, psychologists, business coaches, to provide them with the forum and an opportunity to ask questions themselves and freely, to ask them personally. And like I say, they were brilliantly attended. So obviously attendance levels did vary because of people's work commitments and all of those Zoom meetings everyone was having. But our interactive wellbeing bingo, that had 14 staff come along, so that represents about 30% of our total workforce. Our goal setting workshop, we had 8 people come along to that. And we had a child mental health and wellbeing workshop as well, run by a local clinical psychologist, and that had 11 of us come along, so that was brilliantly attended as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so the team were limited in terms of organising physical events in the community over the last year, but we were committed to posting more online to help inspire other local businesses to get involved in the programme. We're really happy that Change Worcestershire is now on LinkedIn, so that we can tag them in and hashtag them in on posts of ours and help to build their profile. As you can see on the slide there's a couple of examples that my colleague Gail, who's one of our champions and is on our in our Department of International Trade team, posted. So there's one there for Mental Health Awareness Week. A couple of those are both actually for Mental Health Awareness Week, where we had one of our Cup of Catch-Ups. But I know that the Department of International Trade also did a walk with her team. So you know, and what she's done there is she's hashtagged Mental Health Awareness Week and Time to Change. So you know, it was really important that we're sort of promoting what we're doing externally as well as much as possible. So that got lots of interest from local businesses. Next slide, please, Dawn. So I'll just end on some tips, really. We're only a small organisation, but what we've found is that, you know, a really good idea to make your ideas fun and interactive as much as possible. It doesn't have to be talking about mental health necessarily. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. If you're thinking of arranging an event, make it an informal affair. Work is very formal on a day-to-day basis, so it's just about providing a friendly, informal space. Think of a theme. It helps to break the ice a bit with colleagues, and if you've had any new people starting. Schedule short activities. So it doesn't have to be long. It could be over lunchtime, it could be over break, you know, 15 to 30 minutes. That's all that you need to sort of put in there, really. And be creative. It's always worth asking sort of colleagues outside of your Time to Change group to get involved, so that you're reflecting what they're looking for as well. That's a really important thing. It's about the organisation and your culture there. I mean, we're by no means experts at the Chamber, and our plans have evolved since we signed the pledge back in 2018. But we're really proud to be part of this programme, to be affiliated with it. And it's now embedded within our culture at the Chamber. Next, we'll be planning events, sort of how many events we'll be looking to run physical and in the community over 2021 into 2022. So we're really excited about getting out there again, and we'll be looking to do that when restrictions allow. So yeah, that's it from the Time to Change group at the Chamber. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Adri, and hopefully that's helped to give you all a different perspective as to how Time to Change can be implemented in both large organisations and smaller organisations. So thank you both to Kerry and Adri. Those dovetailed really nicely together. So appreciate that. And we are going to go on to something a little bit different now. And I'm pleased to introduce Andy Buxton, who's a community Time to Change champion. So Andy, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
You're there, right? I will just get your presentation on the screen for you.
Lovely, thank you.
And over to you.
Excellent. Hello everyone. A little bit of a change in direction now, as Dawn said. So I'd like to move from sort of supporting health and wellbeing in organisations to actually engaging with our communities and creating conversations around mental health to help address stigma and discrimination that occurs more generally in society. So as Dawn said, my name's Andy Ruxin. I have a background in health and wellbeing, but a change in circumstance for myself 3 years ago led me to look around and see where I could use my skills in a different way. And I came across the local Time to Change group, and that's really what I want to talk to you about, some of their activities and some of the things they've been doing during lockdown over the last 3 years or so. So there are many of these groups around the UK, but the Worcester one particularly is lively and energetic, and there are around about 10 to 15 people in Worcestershire that come together to create the events that we do. And as Amanda said earlier, we do have grants of up to £500 for engaging with community and people talking around mental health and mental wellbeing. So we use some of those grants. You don't have to be a member of our team to do that, but we find that sort of engages us and gives us some resources to be able to deliver some of the things we want to do. So we do also now start to link in more closely with other Time to Change groups that are there, champion groups around the country, which is great because like today, you're sharing the energy, you're sharing your ideas, and you're sharing some of the successes that you've had, and that just leads to more success going forward. I'll talk a little bit later about what we've been doing online recently with having to change our strategy and our approach, but we're always welcoming new members, and there's application for grants. If you've got an idea or a thought, then get them in, and we can help you shape and form those applications so the grant comes through to help you engage with communities. We're very hopeful that our next face-to-face event will be at Worcester Pride in September. So if you're in Worcester on that particular day, then come and search us out. It's a big event, and we've had great fun and great engagement on previous years. there's some contact details at the bottom there, but I think the ones that Amanda shared earlier are very similar to those as well. So get in contact with us, come forward and join the team if you fancy it. If you move on to the second slide now, I'll just go through some of the things that we've actually been doing. So when I first joined 3 years or so ago, we were very much about engaging with people face to face. So this was going out to things like the Malvern Spring Fair, the Pershore Plum Festival, or the Worcester Pride event, as I mentioned, and engaging with people face to face, talking to them, engaging with them. But of course, we need a way of doing that, and our way was to always have something that drew them to our store, something that perhaps even the children that were with them on the day could get engaged with, and then we could talk to the parents or to the grandparents that came with them to these events. So things like pebble painting or seed planting were some of the ideas that we had. So we could just capture their attention for about 5 minutes or so while we shared our experience around mental health and mental well-being. And it's really amazing how many people you get into a really useful conversation with who perhaps hadn't come to those events to talk about mental health and mental well-being on that particular day. So I found that really great. I found it different to what we were doing in organisations when I was health and wellbeing manager there. It was really getting to some of the grassroots people in our community, which I liked and enjoyed immensely. But then 15 months or so ago, the pandemic hit us all, and we had a great programme all last summer of going out to more of these events. But we had to curtail those completely. A lot of them were cancelled. And we had to start getting our thoughts around, well, how do we engage in a different way? And none of us particularly were technically minded, probably proved a little bit today with some of the interactions we've had trying to get this presentations up and what have you. But we had to learn, and luckily someone came along who had skills in this area, and it's amazing where people come from when you need them. So Sally came along and she helped us to do more stuff online. And if you see in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a Kit Kat. And Sally started to put together an online campaign through Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram that said that basically on the headline, some things aren't right, but talking about mental health isn't one of them. And there'd be an image behind it. And in this case, it was a Kit Kat where you hadn't broken the fingers off and eaten them individually. You tried to munch the whole bar. So those sort of images alongside that caption and just were a bit thought-provoking, and we started to get more interaction through those social media events by doing those elements. But we also moved on in other ways. Now, one of the babies that I had, and I had some of the grant money to do this, was doing something called drawing on experience. So I'd recently taken up art, and the people I had drawing and painting, and the team that were teaching me art, colour wheels, agreed after a little bit of persuasion to give us some of their online tutorials. We created a Facebook page and we promoted the first 50 people who came and joined us on that Facebook page, that Facebook group, would have a free drawing kit, and they would have access then to the lessons that we had online. So each week for 6 weeks, we released one of these lessons and people would engage with us. And we had around about 70 people come and join us in that group. And it was really, really useful. And it went from the end of the second lockdown to April. So from October last year through to April. And that was really engaging with those people. We had several conversations and several events which allowed us to engage, even though we weren't there in person, on things like Zoom and what have you, about how people felt about art, but also about how they felt within themselves, which was great. We also then got invited to do Now We're Talking with Art. So we had on the presentation that went around Worcester a few weeks or so ago during May, we had a stand there, which was great. But some of the other things we've done online, we've had a spa evening, headed up as the Power of Sleep. And that was led by somebody else who engaged with us, Temple Spa, and basically a virtual spa online. We had about 25 people join us for that. They got a free health and wellbeing sort of spa kit, creams and stuff. And you know, as you can see from my skin today, I'm still taking benefit from some of those lotions that we were shared at that point. We've got one coming up later this week called a Summer Breeze, again with Temple Spa, and we've got about 30 people who are engaging with us there. And that's all about coming out of lockdown, looking after yourself as you come out of lockdown, which unfortunately has now been postponed by a month, but we're still going to go ahead with it anyway. So we've all learnt new skills as a group of people, so we're all bigger and better people because of that. We are really looking forward to getting back and doing some more face-to-face stuff as hopefully the Worcester Pride comes through in September, but next year we hopefully be able to do that. And you know, come along if you're interested and join the group. It's a great group. It's very entertaining. It gets to the nub of the community conversations, which we're all trying to do. So you know, use the contacts I've given you, and it'd be great to see. We meet once a month virtually at the moment, but in normal times at the library in Worcester on the second Monday afternoon. So in the library. So that's me. I'll hand you back to Dawn now. You're on mute, Dawn.
Thank you, Andy. It sounds like you have a really, really busy time, actually. Lockdown or no lockdown, it sounds like you've kept going. And what's been amazing to me, and I don't know how everybody else feels, we've heard from a large organisation, we've heard from a small organisation, and we've heard from yourself, Andy, who's out there in the community. It is the same message. It's everyone's working together, you know, to the same objective, is getting people talking and supporting people's mental health. And you know, there's so much, you know, that we can do within the two counties to get these messages out and support people. And by working together, you know, I think there's a huge amount that that can still be achieved, and hopefully it's given lots and lots of people lots and lots of ideas as to how they can progress some activities a little bit further after hearing our speakers this morning. So finally, I am going to hand over to Jill Slater, local branch of the CIPD, who will already be known to many of you anyway, but are you there, Jill?
I am.
You are?
I'm not on mute. I'm not on mute.
I'll just call up your slide for you.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Well, what can I say, folks? What a variety of things we've been acquainted with this afternoon. It's been quite amazing, say, different perspectives. My purpose really is to let you know what's available from the CIPD, both locally and nationally. Nationally, the CIPD is the professional body for HR people, and some of you here are HR people and members of the CIPD, so hello to you. Some of you aren't, and some of you I know are small businesses without HR people, or you may be HR people working very independently, being a solo person. Now, whatever your situation is, there is help available from CIPD nationally. You don't have to be a member to get hold of some of these resources, and they are very good. They're very well researched, they're very well put together. So there's a list there of various things that CIPD has been working on in the last 12 months, and they are freely available for you to look at, to consult, to tailor, to do what you wish with, but certainly help and support is available from the HR professional body. There's also support available for HR people on their own. If you are a member of CIPD, there is an assistance program available. So if you are a member and you've got some questions either about yourself or other people, there is a helpline there as available as well. So whether you're independent or part of a bigger group. So the resources are there. The next slide, Dawn, has got a list of what I think is a really useful set of slides. It's actually a workshop the CIPD have put together. It's a mental health and wellbeing workshop for managers. I've been looking at these sorts of programs for the last 12 months, running them internally in my day job, but also looking at them externally for CIPD. I think this is a really useful resource, and again, it's free. It covers these sorts of topics. So it gives you the overview, It highlights the role of the manager in having that supportive conversation, which they do find, I think, sometimes quite difficult. So it provides the guidance and it gives you further reading and resources. So I would strongly urge you to have a look at that. Say it's a whole workshop, it's a set of PowerPoint slides. You can download them and then use them as you wish. So lots there, and please do have a look at it. Locally, we've got the CIPD branch, and we've been running an active programme this year with lots of wellbeing topics in it, and there will be lots more next year as well. So keep an eye on our Eventbrite website for CIPD Hereford and Worcester to see what else we've got coming up. That's all I was going to say, Dawn, because I think we've got a little bit of time, precisely 4 minutes, according to me, to deal with any questions.
It's not a question, but it's just to let you know when you're working with your employees or on the HR side that some of the employees might be carers or have a mental health condition as well as being a carer. So at Worcestershire Association of Carers, we're there to give extra support. And then we do have a specific mental health project for, at the moment, for Wyre Forest and Malvern and the Rurals, but it will open up to all of Worcestershire from October. But we do that support for carers.
Thank you for that, Julia. Worcestershire Association of Carers are actually part of the Worcestershire Employers work group as well, for Time to Change. So there's a lot of interaction there. So hopefully we can start working together with you to support businesses in that respect. So it's good that you're here. Everyone can see you and say hello to you. So thank you for that. I'm just having a look at the chat. We've got some questions in the chat. There's one for you, Adri, from Laura Pye. Great to see what you were doing at the Chamber, but are there any events in the Chamber that takes place in Herefordshire? Yes, there are lots, aren't there? So Laura, we'll get back to you with information about our Herefordshire events, but please look at our website, because there is an events and training calendar on our website which actually covers all our different events. So let's just see, we've got lots of ideas. So we have a question for you, Kerry. Let's pick that one up from Lorraine Brooks. So for Kerry, how do you communicate all the things that are going on at Bosch to individuals? We have a mobile workforce that do not have company email addresses, for example, drivers. And I know you have a lot of van drivers too. So Kerry, are you able to help with that one?
Yeah. So communication to our remote workforce and those who sort of work on site that don't have access to emails. We have a monthly managers meeting where sort of key messages are presented to our senior leadership team. And then this is cascaded through to the department. So any of the initiatives or activities that we're running, we make sure they're included in those to be cascaded. Throughout lockdown as well, we've been running director drop-in sessions via Microsoft Teams, so anyone can access those as long as they've got the codes. They can attend those from their personal devices as well. And when they are visiting head office, we always create sort of digital posters to communicate activities or key messages that we want to get across to our employees. But yeah, it is a challenge, particularly for those working remotely. So it's a good question, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kerry. And actually, you've got the next question as well. So it's another one for you, but on the same theme actually, but it's a question from Mike, Mike G. How has working from home affected your programme at Bosch?
We've obviously had to tweak things slightly. We've set up dedicated email addresses for our champions who can't obviously meet people sort of face to face, so they can still get that one-to-one support from a mental health first aid champion. We've run virtual training sessions which have actually been really successful, and we've had sort of greater numbers attend those, and people asking a lot more questions on sort of a virtual platform. I don't know whether other people have found that at sort of webinars and events. where they seem to be sort of a bit more comfortable asking questions on a chat rather than sort of putting their hand up in front of everybody. So that's been really successful. Our Strava community has really taken off for running and cycling, and we had a sort of Active April initiative run, and that sort of really brought everyone together where they're competing to compete against sort of different employees and cover different mileages. And also we've reached a lot of different employee base with regards to things like mindfulness and yoga, where people might not have wanted to participate in a group setting, but actually via Teams when we run it, if they can switch their camera off, they've actually been a lot more comfortable attending those sorts of sessions. So yes, it's been challenging, but we've actually reached sort of a wider base of employees during this time.
Thank you, Kerry. I hope that answers your questions. I'm very aware that we have actually just run out of time, but I just wanted to very quickly just pick up on some of the great ideas that have been put in the chat that we asked about at the beginning. If people could actually give us information about programmes that they'd actually implemented in their own organisations. And first, mental health first aid training appears a lot. So that's obviously something which a lot of people, a lot of organisations are finding value from. So we have an open door policy. Mind's Wellness Action Plan has been mentioned as a tool which has been very successful, and I know that's available from the Mind website, so it might be something that some of you might wish to look at. Employee assistance programs, schemes. We have open conversations from senior managers to shop floor. Suicide first aid has been completed. A wellbeing buddy for each member of staff, that's another one. And there are other ones here. A smile box, that sounds very interesting. And what we'll do, because I know we're very tight on time, we will actually send out these ideas to everyone after this event, as we will do with the slides as well. So everyone will have the full set of slides and shared information from the chat. So thank you everyone for attending. All that remains for me to say is thank you so much to all our speakers. I know some of you are a little bit nervous, but I thought you did a great job. Without you, we couldn't run these webinars. So we're very grateful that you take the time to put the presentations together for us and deliver them for us. I hope everyone's got something from today. We've tried to cover all eventualities, all situations, all perspectives. And lots of contacts, hopefully, that will actually get us talking to each other now, and obviously really work together to you know, look at discrimination about mental health in Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and